Good evening, this is Ali Tarnishi at Connect with Ali show, where our show focuses on cultural education and raising awareness through dialogue to inspire positive change. In this show, we bring a local and a guest from across the world to discuss diversity, inclusion, community, and equity. By doing that, we are really understanding and support diversity, inclusion, community, and equity to get to understand it from both an immigrant and Canadian perspective. Please help me welcome this amazing guest here. I have Erica Canto and I have Angela Harris. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. Erica.
Start with me.
Yeah. I was going to say lady first, but both ladies.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so my name is Erica and I was born and raised in Brazil. So I left in Brazil in 2005 and I live in the US, in North Carolina for 2 years, and then I moved to Belgium for 4, and I'm here in Canada since 2012. So I've been working in international business for years. I'm really always passionate for language and different cultures, so that's why I chose international business. But then when I moved here in 2012, I was a young mom, and my little boy, who is 9 now, he was 6 months. And I just fell in love with the community, and I started doing volunteer work, and then we started with the Viva Moncton Latino Association, with the Brazilian Association, and I started with coffee, and then when you see, you're just involved in everything. And then I decided 4 years ago to completely change. So I changed the private for no profit. Okay. So in 2018, 2018, I started work at the United Way as a diversity champion, and I just love it. It was a really beautiful project, but somehow we didn't have the funds to continue. And now since 2019, I'm with United Way. Oh, YWCA. Oh my gosh, I love just both. Sorry, with the YWCA, and running 2 programs. One they call Digital Smarts, another one is Employment My Way. And and a board member for some associations like Dialogue and EB, because we do believe as well for the cohesion, right? So it's really important to have the social cohesion here in New Brunswick, and it has changed so much lately. Like you have more newcomers, which is perfect.
Amazing. So from Brazil to Belgium to Canada, diversity. So you've been around diversity, inclusion, and all that. Amazing. Yeah. Nice to have you, my friend.
Thank you.
And now to you, my friend, Angela Harris. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Ali, for inviting me. Angela Harris, and I am an entrepreneur and founder of Work of Heart. I've lived in Greater Moncton. I think I'm going on like 15 years almost. I was actually born in Canada, I was not born in Canada. I was born in Germany, but a Canadian citizen. My dad. What's that? Eine Bitte. Eine Bitte.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't ask anymore. Okay. Yeah. Just joking. I'm joking. But yeah, so my dad and stepdad were both with the Canadian Forces, and so I was born in Germany, and I used to call myself, when people would ask me where I was from, I would say I'm a child of the world, because I moved mostly all around Canada after Germany, and I moved around a lot as well, when I was doing my studies, and as I said, I moved back to Greater Moncton about 14 years ago, actually would be correct, and I've been here ever since. So.
Amazing. 14 years, the same for me. I moved to Canada 2007.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
14 years, and look, like Germany, you were born in Germany, Brazil, Belgium, Morocco, UK.
Yes.
It's just diversity speak louder, and we have all these diverse, amazing people. So that just will lead us to the question, what diversity, inclusion, and equity mean to you? Let's start with diversity. What does diversity mean?
Yeah. I can say it means a lot for me, and even myself. Funny story, like I have a black dad and a white mom. So since I was little, I was like, when I was with my mom's family, it's kind of, you're too black.
Yeah.
When I was my dad's side, like, you're too white. You kind of feel you don't belong to. Yeah. I mean just joking, like my cousins were joking, but I find like I kind of grew up in this kind of environment that for me it was really important to have, like, we are equal. You know, it's not about the color or like educations, and it's about what kind of needs you have. So I do believe in diversity is really important. But what I find, like, we have a diversity already everywhere, What is the missing part is the inclusion. So they're both working together. So, and that why for me it's so important. And even myself, I'm from Brazil, but my ex-husband is from Belgium. So my kids are mixed as well. So two different countries, right? And two different cultures, two different languages. And we decided to move here to Canada, which is like another culture. So for me, it's really important to expose them and them to understand it's normal to be different. And like we complement each other. That's the point. Like we are different, that's amazing. So the stuff is I don't have, you have, and the stuff is you don't have, I have, and then we can kind of exchange this knowledge. So that's why for me, I like diversity and inclusion because I think they are kind of married, like they cannot be like separately. And and the equity part is more, we don't have the same needs, right? So like even if you have this diversity, this inclusion as well, in the inclusion part, what kind of resources, what kind of information or what kind of tools we can give for this person to be at the same level, for us to be equal, right?
100%.
So,
Love that. I love that. That's so like in the middle, like black and white, half black, half white, and it's just like Belgium, Brazil, Canada, and it's just like that's amazing. And that's
even my kids, like they don't look like my kids, you know, and it looks like my mom's granddaughter.
that's the beauty of diversity. Just like everyone have their own uniqueness. And they love the way you put it because you just like they are almost like a marriage, like diversity and inclusion, and they complete each other. Amazing. Amazing. Anything to add, my friend?
I mean, I think it's it's interesting. I feel that every day we all learn more, right? And we learn what diversity really means to each of us, and what I would have defined it 5 years ago or even a year ago is different than the way that I see it now. And I think it's important for all of us to keep learning and growing and getting educated on things. Diversity sometimes feels very complex, but simply put, it's really just all of our differences, and it applies to your gender identity, your nationality, your background, your values. Like we're all diverse, and so I think it's just really how we want to interact with each other. So
even if you're coming from the same country, right? So we still have this diversity. I find like even in Brazil, like the north and the south are not the same,
right?
Like they don't look the same, they don't speak the same. So and we still all speaking Portuguese. So even the language has just this slightly difference, right? So
100%, and even in the same family, like
I was just gonna say that. I was like, should I bring that up? Are my parents, my family watching? But I think what it boils down to, like I said, it's it's your beliefs, it's your values, it's your human experience, and it's the choices that we make and how we decide that we want to show up and how we want to interact with other people. So, and that can vary from family, or like within a family. So
100%, and that just will bring us to the next question, which is diversity is a fact, either we want it or not. It is something that there is black, there is white, there is red, there is green, but inclusion is a choice. What's your comment about that? Like diversity, I would say that to the audience as well. Diversity is a fact. Inclusion is a choice. Or the choice.
And I mean, I think, again, we all have a different background and different way that we show up and the choices that we make. And, I think that it's most important that we recognize and we appreciate and we respect the differences of other people. And again, I think that many of us grew up thinking that we were being inclusive, and we grew up thinking that by doing this or saying that or whatever, it was inclusive, and it wasn't. And as I've gotten older, I'm recognizing that we can always do more. And I think from an inclusion perspective, and you kind of brought it up a little bit too, Erica, that recognizing that we're not all on a level playing field. So from an equity or equality perspective, we need to take that into consideration. And so we need to all make a concerted effort to be inclusive and to teach our children to be inclusive. And it starts with the kids, right? So
100%. I really like that, because it's always like it's I heard somebody say, like, diversity is being invited to a party,
Right.
It's very
but
nice.
the inclusion is being invited to the dance.
Yes, it's very
And
nice. Yeah, she's the one who is brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and equity is being involved into the party. Like
There we
you are
go.
part of the council, like the organization party.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's why, like
Yeah.
for my kids, I usually say when I want to bring some stuff that I love metaphor. So I usually say like diversity is like all the ingredients we have it, right? So you
Right.
have like greens or beans or like whatever you have.
Yeah.
So they are there. If you don't action,
Yeah.
they're still there. They're not gonna change anything. So the integration, like the inclusion, is really getting them together, and then we can
Right.
kind of mix them and cook it. So I see like the diverse is the situation, but like you said, it's a choice, but it's an action. So if you don't acting for do something, it's not gonna happen. We
That's
cannot
it.
have this, you know. So, and I like to cook as well. That's why most of the my
I know,
I like it with
I'm
cooking.
going to Erica's house. I think she just invited us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I will. I
Yeah.
promise. Yeah.
So diversity is about cooking, and inclusion about invited to
Yes.
eat
To
what
eat,
Erika is
yes.
cooking. Is it?
She's making a salad, I think is what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, you brought food. That's all.
Yeah, I'm like-
People love food.
I love to cook.
Yes.
I'll be really glad. No, but that's good.
I totally agree with you. It's almost like pizza when you have
Yeah.
like green pepper, you have tomato, you have stuff, and it's all look colorful. It look beautiful. But
Yeah.
what I'm going to choose to put on that pizza?
Yes.
It's like a team. I'm going to make a team to play soccer.
Yeah.
Okay, I invite all the team, but who is going to be one of the 11 players to be playing that team?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if I give, that's just a sample example, like for instance, I invite you to play, but I
Yeah.
didn't give you the equipment to play. That's not
Yes.
equity.
No,
Or teach you
exactly.
Or
how
teach
to
you.
play,
Yeah.
right?
Here we go.
You know, I think that's the other thing. Like, you don't want to just invite someone again. So I'm, you know, sports background. So going to that, it's, you know, yeah, sure, invite everyone to the field. But if someone hasn't ever played soccer or they haven't ever played a thing,
They feel
they're not
like
even
it.
going to know where to start. So I
100%.
think sometimes we have to take a couple steps back and recognize that, you know, if we want to, you know, we want to do our best, then that's where it starts.
100%.
I
It's
find inclusion is really linked also with the sense of belong, right? So you can have this inclusion, but you need to feel you belong to this place,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes it's harder to measure it. Like how can you measure the sense of belong? How can you measure like, yes, I'm a part of this,
Right.
you know? So I see both like kind of working together as well.
a feeling.
Yeah.
It's a feeling most of the time. It's human need is need to be met. Like if you need to be
Yeah.
heard, you need to be understood, you need to be respected, and above all, you need to feel safe.
Yes.
And the most important, the feeling of belonging. If you feel you belong to a team, like a community, it could be a community of Muslim, community of Christian,
Yeah.
community of Jew, and that community, if you feel part of that community, you feel like you belong. You're proud
part
of
of
it. I am.
something. Yeah.
You will be proud to say, I'm from Brazil. I'm Brazilian. I would say I'm proud. I'm from Morocco. That's
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
self of belonging, and they belong.
Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
you feel respected, recognized, you thrive and you grow.
Well, and I think the other part of it is I think that we need to be willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we have to be willing to have those hard conversations and to be wrong, right? And I think for a long time, I wouldn't want to ask you a question. I wouldn't want to come across the wrong way. I wouldn't want to
being
offend you,
polite.
or
Yeah.
so I'd try and I'd use what I knew, but so you could be experiencing something and I'd have no idea. And so I think as I've gotten older and have more people around me that I feel comfortable and safe having these conversations with, I can say, hey, listen, can you help me understand this? Or, is this an appropriate way of saying something? Not is this politically correct, but is this appropriate? Is this like, how does this, come across? And if I have screwed up, or if I have said something, I want people to be able to have a very respectful conversation, to be like, hey, did you know this? And I'm like, oh my, like I would never want to come across that way. But I think that we've evolved in some respects to, or grown maybe is a better word, to be able to have those conversations.
Yeah. And I find like when they feel they belong, you have a voice.
Yes.
So then like you're vulnerable.
Then you're comfortable.
to
Yes.
have those kind of conversations,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I agree, and it's true. Like you don't want to hurt other. We don't want to the other one to take it wrong.
Right.
Even for like even being an immigrant, or I don't feel myself more an immigrant, but even that, even like asking stuff is for Canadian as well. We don't want to be impolite. So it's kind of just middle situation. Yes, but when you feel you belong, you just ask, right? And say, did I say something wrong? Like yes. Oh my gosh, sorry. Like it was not my intention. You know,
right?
Let's keep moving. You know.
Well, and that's it. You don't need to make it awkward, right?
No,
like it doesn't need to be a big ordeal. It can be like, oh my gosh, Erica, I'm sorry, and then move on and learn and grow. But
100%.
Yeah.
It's a really good point. It's all about education. It's about education, and sometimes if we are not on the same page, we can't move forward.
Right.
But when we really sit down and talk, like this conversation we are having, it's about cultural education and raising awareness through dialogue to inspire positive change. And that's what we want. Just we want a change for our community. We want a change to feel inclusive, to feel that we are part of this, and we are part of this, as either we want it or not. We are an immigrant, we are Canadian, but we want people to understand that as immigrant, as Canadian, to foster and support the community to grow for the better, because 5 fingers of a hand make a strong hand, can grab a bigger thing. But 2 fingers, 1 finger can't grab anything. So black, white, red, whatever, Muslim, Christian, Jew, whatever, when they all sit together and have an open, honest conversation, there is no point that you are going to hurt somebody's feeling. If, as Angela mentioned, if you really ask, I'm saying it correct, can you really educate me about that? But people are scared to ask because they think, oh, I see someone and they put a barrier. But it's us as immigrants too. We need to change the way we look at things. We need to learn the culture of Canadian, and we are. And Canadian too, like I used to drive taxi long time ago. And people, I used to get like offended when people ask me, where are you from? I said, where are you from? Well, I'm from my mother. So it's just, but that's the way to break that, and they start laughing. And so you're really funny. And they said, where are you really from? Then you know they are really genuine and they want to know where are you from, so they can have a good conversation with. But some people, they can ask that question just so they can hear, what are you doing here? Why you come here? So those questions, so it is sometimes about education, as I always talk. And when I talk to them and we discuss, we really have like a common ground. We are discussing and we're having a nice conversation, and it's all starts with education. And sometimes we have to be vulnerable. Yes, I am here and I come to a new country and I'm willing to learn the culture. And I'm part of this community, so let's grow together and build a good community to be one family. And that just brings me to the next question. That will be 3 minutes. Let's squeeze it and maybe we'll come back. In your opinion, what is the most challenging aspect of working in a diverse environment? In your opinion, what is your most challenging aspect of working in a diverse environment? You can leave that in a comment as well in our channel, and we will look at that. So anybody can jump to that question.
I think I can say something. It's funny because we cannot make everybody happy. I think that's the challenge, right? And not everybody has this open mind, open heart. I even not say open mind, like open heart, right? So sometimes you don't have the knowledge, but if you have the will, this heart to open to understand and to ask. So I think the challenge is really, we are always gonna have someone who's not happy. And be okay with that. I think that for us, I learned that I want to make sure everybody's happy, make everybody's comfortable. I'm learning to like, sometimes I say to myself, Erica, some people are not gonna be happy, and be okay with that. You can try, but you cannot take a decisions for other. I cannot take a decisions for that people or for that person or for, So that's, I think, is the most challenge, because you feel like you're just exploding, want to show like, that's so nice, we can do so many stuff together, and then like, block. Like you cannot do anything.
No smile, nothing. Did I do something wrong or what?
Yes, and like, did I do something wrong? But anyways, I think that's the most challenge. For me, at least, and be okay with that is really hard, because I want everybody to be part of. And some people, when I feel the person or like the group is not part of, it's kind of hurt but it's kind of like a communication, right? It's both ways. So you have to be open, and then we can,
Well, and I think, you brought it up too, Ali, earlier, but all of us just want to be seen and heard, right? Like we want people to understand where we're coming from, and the reality is we're always going to have interactions with people and things going on, and there's times where we're never going to see things the same way, and it doesn't, of course, everyone's not going to be happy, but as strong as my argument might be, or whatever I say, there's going to be times where you might not agree with me. And I think that can be a challenge for many people, like to especially when they get like very strong and focused and opinionated about something that they don't understand where someone else is coming from, and so it can get very argumentative or confrontational. And I think the reality is, as I said, we can have respectful conversations and agree to disagree, and to I can have my beliefs and you can have your beliefs, and we can still
being together, be strong together,
be strong together. And but I do think overall that would be that's a definite challenge for people.
100%. What an amazing topic. We will be right back after the break. Thank you very much. Hello, welcome back. We are back to Connect with Ali show, and just a reminder, we were talking about diversity, inclusion, community, and equity. Let's dive together to get to understand really what diversity, inclusion, community, and equity mean from both an immigrant and Canadian perspective. So we're having this conversation just from the heart, to be open and meaningful, and just to raise awareness, to ignite and to put a positive change in our community. So we will go back to the question that we were having, and you were sharing some really good point, my friend Angela, about, in your opinion, what is the most challenging aspect of working in a diverse environment? And you were sharing about we have to educate ourselves and speak from the heart.
Yeah.
And that's really what we need, and that's what we are doing right here. Three diverse people having an open conversation, and everyone adds something to the table because we are different.
Yeah, and I think that's what it boils down to is respectful conversation, and being willing to, as I said, be wrong or to be vulnerable, and to ask for help and to learn how we can do better.
100%. And a lot of people, as you mentioned, my friend, as Erica mentioned earlier too, some people are scared to do mistakes. Some people are afraid to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay if you feel like you hurting somebody's feeling. Ask them, did they do that wrong? Can you please educate me? It's all about education. And that's what we need really in our community. And we see a lot of change actually in our community. It's mosaic, and there is a lot of stuff that's going on. If I look back in 2010 and now 2021, I see a big difference. I can tell you, once I was driving a cab, and one guy told me downtown, "Get out of here, you are not welcome." I was like, honestly, God, but that's just education. The only thing he saw Alibaba cab, and Alibaba cab is a trigger his think, and thought that's something different, and told the customer, don't get in his cab. He's a foreigner, he's a stranger. But that didn't stop me. Because that just gives me more. I want to educate. I want to be, because it's a beautiful community. Moncton, I live in a different place, and people are very friendly, people are very nice, and we want this community to stay diverse, open, and connected, and to the heart, and be genuine to have a nice conversation. That will just bring me to the next question: how can we foster the cross-cultural communication at an early age? I think you touched base early about it, like with your children
For
and
my
stuff.
kids,
Yeah.
yeah.
How can we foster the cross-cultural communication at an early age?
I find like most of this stuff start at the dinner table, right? So that's it starts with conversations, and sometimes it's so hard to change like you don't change a behavior, like or like sometimes the way the people think, and it's hard to, especially when they are older, so complicated. And then kids, if they heard the stuff at the table, like dinner table, they're just gonna reply, they're just gonna echo, right? So I believe if we have, as they say, like if we have at the schools, a kind of part of the curriculum, you know, what is diversity, what is inclusion, what it be, especially now with all different genders, you know, and all this stuff. So I find it's important if you can have that at school, because one of the stuff is I realized one of the projects I have was a neighborhood. When I was working as a diversity champion, when we talk with the kids, they were talk at school, but when they are in the neighborhood, they didn't talk each other because the parents didn't talk, right? So it's not, and you feel like why, like you know, they respected the parents, but it's still like they don't have bias. So I think it's important to not only bring, like we bring that to the school, but find some ways how can you empower this youth. Like it's information, but should like I don't know, give them some kind of a structure to be like to own. Like we need to kind of give some ways, like to give, like have them to own this voice, you know, and feel okay to talk with the parents, you know, and say no, daddy, or no, mom, like whatever, it's okay. They are nice, you know, even if they are not born and raised here. So I truly believe in the school system, but I find it's we still need to have just champions in the neighborhood to kind of complement it. You know, like all the job that the schools are doing. Do you see? So that's more or less how I see. But it's a challenge. Like it's not, if it's not part of the curriculum, it's complicated. It's kind of a racism, right? So you kind of have the same.
Well, and I think, you know, to your point, Erica, I think that especially with children, it starts with us, right? It starts with us as parents, and I think, you know, in our family and many people I know, it's having those like open conversations, and you know, I try to be very to the point, and I try to you know, I've tried to make it so that my kids can ask me anything. And I think that, you know, the same as I want to be able to have conversations with other people, I want my children to be able to come and ask me questions about diversity or about, you know, different things that they see or that, you know, that they don't understand. And you know, I think it starts with us. And I do agree with you. I'm seeing a lot more from my children. I'm hearing more things come home. You know, they're definitely more willing to talk about, you know, Ramadan, or they're talking about, you know, they're talking about pronouns, and they're talking about things that when we were growing up, or even like I said, 5-10 years ago, we weren't having these conversations as adults, right? So I think it's amazing that our kids are coming home and they're learning about different things, and we can say, yeah, okay, it's this, or, you know, let's be kind and respectful, and you know, and if I don't know about something, then we Google it. Right?
Yeah. We're looking for something for that.
100%.
Yeah.
It's cross-cultural. It's all start with the parent, 100%, and just lead them, like think for themselves. That's one thing that parent mostly does. Like they just like don't let the children think for themselves or think out of the box. Like don't do that. And how many times, like if we just put, like if you go to the daycare and you see all the kids playing together, like they don't say that's black, that's Muslim, that they play. Tell the parents, no, don't play with that, don't play with that, don't do that. And the child start like looking, what did they do wrong? And they start growing with that from an early age. But if you just lead them, like go, like be spontaneous, and just as you shared, like talk about anything. Don't be afraid and discuss, because we'll learn from our mistake and we'll learn by doing.
We learn by doing.
Definitely.
100%. And anything we can add before we move to the next question? Like cross-cultural.
Oh, listen, Eric and I could talk for like hours.
We're
So
talking before.
how long is the show? I don't know. Like,
What's really good?
trying to keep it tight.
And you're like, stop it.
All right, let's move to the next one. So this is I'm going to turn my hat on this question.
Yeah.
Because this is effort to foster diversity without equitable practice and intentional inclusion will always fall short. Effort to foster diversity without equitable practice and intentional inclusion will always fall short. What do you think of that? We can talk all as much as we want about diversity, but if there is no inclusion,
or intention, right? Sometimes
yeah, I think I liked that part of it.
Yeah,
it was the intention.
Yeah.
And it was interesting when I saw that question, you know, and I don't want to get caught up on semantics, but I'll get caught up on semantics. I don't think that we can say it will always fail. Is that what you said? Always fail? Because the reality is we all have different experiences and we all have, you know, different things that we bring to the table. And I think, you know, there's times where you can be in at an event or in a workplace, and if the culture, you know, when I'm talking about workplace culture, if the workplace culture is positive and inclusive, like just the people themselves have already shown up that way, then, you know, I don't think that you will say it will always fail, because in that situation, I think with the right leadership and the right encouragement, you would probably be okay. But for the most part, I think we do need to be intentional, and we do need to do more, and we need to be, you know, we need to kind of have those check boxes. It doesn't need to be a formal thing, but we need to go, you know, okay, have we done this? Have we, you know, what are we doing about that? Like a mental checklist, if you will, to be like, all right, where are we at? And are we being inclusive? And as I said earlier, you know, providing a safe space for people to challenge us and to say, hey, you know, have you thought about this? You know, at some of my events, over the years, people have asked me questions about different, you know, different inclusive types of things, and you know, I welcome those conversations because I want people to feel welcome, and I want, you know, that our community to be that way as well. So, but
100%.
I think it's intention.
And I find, like, as you mentioned, need to be intentional. It's hard because it's easy to be in your comfortable zone.
Yeah.
You know, so being intentional, being like you're gonna have to get out from your comfortable zone and be exposed. So that's really hard. So that's why you need to be intentional on what you are doing. Otherwise, it's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna work. But I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Well, and I think, you know, I've learned, you know, especially over the last year with things that are happening in the world and things that are happening around us. You know, I said this to you. I'm like, I thought I was doing a pretty good job. Right? Like I thought that I have a big heart and I have the best of intentions, and, you know, I do my best to be kind and respectful, but there are things that I think that we need to have more conversations about, and we need to recognize that that we can do better and we can do more, and
100%.
Yeah.
When I share, like, it's always fall. Like like a company will say everything about diversity.
Yeah.
But if there is not equitable practices, like they are not having equity, that definitely will fall. Like people, they are not. Just I'll give you, for example, an example. If I invite all of you for supper at my house, all of you, and they have one table right there and one table right there, Angela and Hillary are sitting at this table.
Yeah.
And they will treat me the best treatment. Erica and Joe, they will be sitting at that table. I don't even talk at them. I don't even talk to them. I don't even look at them. Even I serve the most amazing, delicious food.
Yes.
When they leave the house,
they
are not going to talk about the food. Even it was like the best food, they will talk about the treatment. There was no equity there. And like those people, like they have like favorism, like talking to them and stuff. So this is like, even like we diversity, yes, inclusion, but if there is not provide, like for the team, as we shared earlier, if there is no training, if there is no equipment and tools, they will fail.
That's it.
And that's my think about inclusion and equity, because equity is a big thing, and that will
Yeah.
just bring us to another question later on.
Yeah.
Equity is the umbrella that's holding the diversity and inclusion, like holding both hands, like the big brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm giving you this, and the same tools. And that's definitely that's why, like, my question was, when I formed this question, I was like, how I can make it so it will be
Yeah.
effort to foster diversity without equitable practice and intentional inclusion.
Yeah.
Because we need to be intentional in our communication, even with
Yeah.
ourselves. When we talk to ourselves, we have to be intentional. We have to be intentional with our children and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So a successful,
Yeah.
strong community need that.
I was going to say that I feel that it needs to be more than just on paper as
Yes.
well, right? Like,
Yeah.
You'll see workplaces or organizations or, things out there, and they're talking about their diversity and inclusion practices, or, how they have this equity or pay equity or whatever it is. And when you start digging into it, you have conversations with
It's not really.
people involved, you're like,
The manager or the big boss, and you just notice, like,
so you don't actually believe that, like, but I think that it's starting to become a lot more evident that when it's actually truly happening, and when it exists in a place and when it doesn't.
Yeah, and also
So-
any kind of level, be mature enough to understand we all have different needs.
Yeah.
Well, like, that's what equity, I believe it.
Yeah.
So it will be okay if you have more stuff, is in my point of view, but you have more need than I do.
Right.
So be matured enough to not understand you receiving more. It's not about we receiving more. You
Right.
receive what you need, and I receive what I need, and we are okay. So
Yeah.
I find it's like to have this maturity not only in the management level, but also in the co-work levels, to understand we are equal, but not really,
Yeah.
right? You don't have the same tools or the same resources that the
Right.
others.
Yeah.
Even I'm talking about education, so some people has more education than others know, so then they receive, like, I don't know, some extra information to have an education. We should be happy, and then we can be
Yeah.
all together and grow. But that can be in a negative way to say, why she can study, why I cannot. So it's like,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So
and
I think you need to
that's-
grow out a little bit in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, even on the education aspect, that we take it for granted, right? Like, and especially as Canadians, and I came from a house that promoted education. Like, my parents didn't have university, so me going off to university was a big deal. And so, but that was kind of, high school was kind of my, like, that's the minimum standard. And then, like I said, over the last couple of years, I've realized, what, there are some children who don't have that support at home, that they would even think that finishing high school is important, or doing anything above that is important. And so that's a privilege that I came out with, that I didn't know, right? Because I only knew what I knew. I only knew what I grew up with. And what I'm recognizing is, I'm talking about that in our community, but in other parts of the world, that would finishing high school would be a major deal. So I think it
100%. Really some great point. And now we have only 50 seconds, but both
just
point
went
that
so
you
fast.
shared, it's amazing. Like, equity, it's hard to satisfy everyone,
Yeah.
especially like at work. There's somebody who have like a higher degree, so
Yeah.
probably they will get a higher job because of their qualification and so. But for I mean, like, equity, like, if both have the same level,
Yes.
but one get the other without even give the other one chance. That's,
Yeah.
I think, where it feel a little bit there is no equity there. So with that being said, my friend, equity, how does equity support diversity and inclusion? That will be our next question. And we will be back after that. So how does equity support diversity and inclusion? So see you in a few minutes. Thank you very much for watching. Hello again. Here we are at Connect with Ali Show. We are discussing diversity, inclusion, community, and equity, and just to get to understand it from Canadian and immigrant perspective. And we'll go back to the question where we stop at: how does equity support diversity and inclusion? How does equity support diversity and inclusion? Equity is like the big brother to diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, I mean, when we start talking about social equity and where people are at, I think, to your point earlier, I think we need to look at individual needs, and we need to assess situations, as we see them, and not forget about common sense, right? Because a lot of times, especially over the last few years, we've been like, no, okay, you have to have a woman, or you have to have this, or you have to, you have to have a new immigrant, or it's been kind of very factual and very pointed. But I think at the end of the day, what we need to be doing is looking at situations and looking at where people are coming from, and what they might need more support with, or what they might need an accommodation with, right? So I think that, and that is what would make us make it equitable, and make it that we're on the same playing field to do something. So that's my
100%.
Yeah.
Accommodation and providing all the resources and the tools for people to succeed.
yes,
And that's what we need, really.
That's what I also, you add, like, I think it's like find what is the resources, what are the tools they needed to be able to moving forward.
Right.
Right? Like, you have the diversity and it all included, but then you kind of have this lack of, they are included but not really included, because they are not in the same level of education, or not the same level of language, or so.
Right.
What they, especially language, I find like, for newcomers, they do have the resources they needed, but if they don't have the language, it's kind of they don't have anything. Right? So equity is kind of, okay, let's provide this English class or this French class to be able to make sure they are back, like they are part of the community, right? And that sometimes is hard to. I think sometimes, and I say for myself as well, I don't have the maturity to understand. But why does this person? But then I have to stop and say, Erica, like, yes, they do need, because that's the way for them to be successful, right? To be able to moving forward for the next step, and it's still here in this community, and it still add value. So you just add value, or you just share what you have, if you have, right? So you cannot share something you don't have. So I think equity is pretty much like that. Give them the resource, because they have way more stuff to share. But then you give one thing, the other stuff is gonna shine. Yeah,
100%. It's the resources and the access to the resources. That's the big thing. Like we have like equity. How does equity support diversity and inclusion? And you both share really some really important point. Resources, tool, but access and equality. Because when everyone feel like three of us are here, and we have access to the resources and stuff. So if me and Angela have access to the support, and Erica doesn't, and we give a test at the end, and they said, okay, definitely Erica won't pass, but that's not fair. Because equity is about fairness. It's about everyone have the same chance to succeed and to pass.
And I find another thing is important to understand as well. We give the resources, but it's basically like you have, like, I see for myself with my kids, I would teach them to fish, but I don't give the fish all the time. So we can give the resources maybe the first or the second time, just for the person to feel comfortable. But then I find like we still need to this teaching part to be able to, for them to do themselves. Otherwise they're gonna be comfortable and just feel like we are receiving, but it's not about receiving, it's about learning how to make yourself. Right? So I think that's another thing important about equity, and that's why I think that gets messed, because then this common sense that we understand, and then people say, oh, but they are just receiving. So they are receiving, but we should think like they are receiving, but we are teaching them how to get it.
Well, and I think some of it is like, when you're talking, I'm like, well, and I think some of it is like teaching people to be resourceful, you know, and teaching people to challenge something if they don't agree with it, right? Or to find out more information. But for me, you know, I would be like, okay, well, you didn't give me what I needed, or like I can't find this, so I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. You know, and some of it could be my personality, but you know, but I also think that, you know, you'll see some people that are not comfortable, you know, someone gives them an answer and they're like, okay, well, I guess that's it, right? Like, I'm not allowed to do this, or I'm not going to succeed at this, or I'm never going to go past, you know, high school, or I'm not going to try for that job because I don't have this skill. Whereas, you know, there probably are resources and things to help, but people don't know how to access them.
Yeah, that's true.
100%. It's also like it's a matter also of it take personality to deal, like there is different type of personality. So as you said, like you could say no, somebody could take it personally and they stop and shut down there and they can't move forward. So you know each one's skills, you know each one like ability, so you assist them, you guide them, you mentor them, and you train them. And that's resource, that's the quality of a good leader, not manager or boss. Quality of a good leader. The leader understand personality, understand the style of its personality, and they know how each person learn. So you can't say, okay, this person is going to do this, this person is going to do this, but did you give chance to the other people that maybe they can speak out? Or maybe they have a hard time, maybe they are too shy, or they are too...
and some of it, like some of it, and this is why we're here, some of it's cultural differences, right? Like I was taught that I have the right to question things, or to speak up, or to do things. And I mean that, like, I was taught, my parents are both vocal, right? So that's the way that I was raised. But, you know, in some cultures, like, you know, it's like not appropriate, right?
You just listen and do it.
Exactly.
Don't
so,
argue.
you know,
They're just going to look at you and got the message.
Exactly. I don't think I was supposed to argue as much as I did, just for the record. But I think, you know, to your point though, Ali, about leadership, I think it's important for leaders to look at cultural differences and to understand, okay, well, this person isn't as successful as we thought, or this person doesn't seem ambitious, or doesn't seem like they're putting their hand up to speak, or whatever it is. And, you know, is it that they don't feel comfortable? Is it a cultural difference? Is it, you know, what's going on for them, right? So,
and and sorry, just something came into my mind right now is like ownership, right? I think you need to teach them to own whatever they decide to do, take it and do it, right? Even like, for example, at the YWCA, we have this training. We support women to create their own business. So I tell them all the time, it's your baby. I'm here to give you the resources, but it's your baby. You have to take care of it, right? So it gives them the ownership to do it. I don't know if that makes sense.
I really like that when you share also about that Chinese proverb. Don't give me a fish, but teach me how to catch a fish. Because that's you want have that person all the time keep coming to you, like give me.
Because what happened with the fisherman is that like forget, like the resource is over. Like, you know,
you're done.
You're like, what?
So now she's making dinner with fish and salad. That's what she's talking about.
All kind of vegetables that will be diverse.
We already started the menu.
Okay. And we are going to sit on the same table. Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, one table.
Really some good point you're sharing here, and it's all about access, it's all about opportunity, it's all about leadership as well, and it's all about diversity and understanding cultural differences, because that can play a big part in that. Like back home in Morocco, when I was in Morocco, like if you look at the person in the eyes, that considered disrespect.
Oh, sorry.
So when I came to Canada here,
I'm like, this is
when I
problematic
came
for
to
me.
Canada
Yeah,
here, like I
yeah.
was like, holy, back home is disrespect. Here, if I don't look at them in the eyes, it's respect with disrespect.
Yes.
What should I do?
And that's it, like, you know, because I again, you know, from confidence and from a strength perspective, and it's like when you look into someone's eyes, it is like it's strength and confidence. It's also like,
You're
you know,
connected,
you're
right?
connected. It's you're speaking from the heart. You're actually listening and engaging with
100%.
somebody. But you know, if I went to Morocco, that might not
Especially
be
for the
well
elderly, like for the
received.
old
Yeah.
people. Like if you look at somebody older than you, it's considered disrespect, like your father or your grandfather or your cousin. You look at them in the eyes, so you have to talk, show
there's
respect.
a-
Like
Okay.
yes.
Being bold and
But when I come here, I was really having a hard time. Like when
Yeah.
talking to people and looking into eyes, I just
Yeah.
like look at this and they look at me like,
Yeah.
what's
What
your
do
eyes? What is your eyes?
what's-
What are you looking at?
Yeah.
what's going on?
Then I was like, then I realized it's like it's part of- in communication too. Like to be a good
Okay.
speaker, you
Yeah.
have to look at people in the eyes just to show you are genuine. You are
Yes.
like you speaking from the heart, and they can trust you.
Yeah.
And you're telling the truth. And I was like, oh my God, I really have to look at people's eyes. So I was just
Yeah,
like
it
looking.
is hard.
I start to look. I start to look at her like.
And you know what? There's probably more cultures like that, right? And I so you know, I just learned that. I didn't know
did
that
not
before
either,
right now.
yeah.
So I think it's important for people to recognize that, and then you know, not take something personally or not think that someone's not paying attention. You know, maybe think, okay, is this, you know, what?
100%.
Yeah.
And especially at school, there is a lot of kids that come from different culture,
Yes.
like from Arab world and stuff like that. When they are not looking at the teacher in the eye, probably the teacher says, "He's not
They're not
respecting me.
paying
Why are you not
attention
looking at me?"
Yeah.
But that's
There.
something that's
Yeah.
it's a learning experience. Just like people like get to understand and asking question. That's a big thing in anything. Just asking
Yeah.
question will lead to answer 100%.
Yeah.
And we have 2 minutes, and let's wrap up to this quick question. I know it is, what some of the activity you would like to see in our community to foster and cultivate diversity?
That's a good question
Closure.
because right now, if COVID,
You think you can do that in 1 minute? Just invite us for supper, Erica.
I don't invite us in my
Suppers
house.
at Erica's house. I think we're done. No.
Bring the wine.
Yes. There you go.
Genuine wine.
Genuine. Genuine.
Yeah, genuine.
Please.
I think, you know, you brought up earlier about Mosaic, and I think that it's important for us to continue to have events and to be able to conversations and to understand, you know, different cultures and the way that, you know, the way that they celebrate. I think it's important for us as adults and for our kids too. So I think in our, you know, in the Greater Moncton area, you know, I think it's important for us to keep doing that in a COVID-friendly manner,
yeah.
obviously. So.
But I find, like, if I compare when I moved here, 2012, and then I find like 2016 was kind of a boom, and somehow like we have adjusted
Yes.
a lot of different cultures, and it is the associations, the multicultural associations, doing like a beautiful job, right? So I think it's a channel for us to access them, and you'll be able to learn more from them. So I think that could be something that to be, you know, how we're gonna do that. We have to thinking about it because we used to have mosaic, right? But it was one day. But what could you do? Like in the daily basis, right? Like they could them, I don't know, do some presentations about the culture, do some kind of food marketing, or do, you know. So that's because not only about the language itself, is like it's the food, the music, and you know, that's all culture.
Yeah, I think we need food festivals. Now I'm like, I'm
Yes.
getting hungry.
Me too.
Yeah, talking about the food. Yeah, don't talk about the food. I'm fasting, so I will be eating. Thank you very much, everyone, for this amazing. I just would like to wish a happy feast and Eid Mubarak. I know the feast is tomorrow for all the Muslim in the community. So happy feast and Eid Mubarak Sa'id. So if you see any Arab or any Muslim, that's the expression. Happy feast or Eid Mubarak.
Happy feast.
Eid Mubarak. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.